Welcome to Leading with Purpose, the podcast that's dedicated to helping you become the leader you aspire to be. Join us on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and inspiration as we explore the world of leadership and personal growth. In each episode, we will explore the art and science of effective leadership, bringing you insights, stories, and strategies from experts and thought leaders across various industries. And now your hosts, Dawn Marie Bornhammer, Maisha B. Hoy, Janelle E. Taylor, and Dr. Sharon H. Porter. Welcome to Leading with Purpose, the podcast that's dedicated to helping you become the leader you aspire to be as you lead, empower, inspire, and achieve. I am Dr. Sharon H. Porter, Editor-in-Chief of Vision and Purpose Lifestyle Magazine.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maisha Hoy, CEO of BSHG LLC, which manages MaishaLemonadeStand.com, QBob, and Customer First Marketing.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dawn Bornheimer, the founder of Mission Inspired Consulting.
And we are excited to have our guest, Mr. Marcus Canady, as our guest for this episode. Marcus is a military veteran that has gone around the country providing leadership training on intrusive leadership. He recently published a book entitled Intrusive Leadership, How to Become That Leader. This is available on Amazon. He has conducted speaking engagements at Procter & Gamble, Merck, and General Electric, and has been a featured guest on the Karen Hunter Show. And without further ado, we'd like to say welcome to Mr. Marcus Canady. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to join you today.
Absolutely. We are just going to dive right in. There are so many questions swirling around my head, and I want to start with, what are some of the characteristics that define intrusive leadership?
All right. Well, that's an easy one. Some of the characteristics that define an intrusive leader is emotional intelligence. I think anyone that is a student of leadership knows how important it is to understand your emotions, how to manage them, but also understand and how to manage the emotions of other people. So intrusive leaders have high levels of emotional intelligence. They are transparent. They are vulnerable and humble at times. They can't expect people to open up to them if they remain closed to people. So intrusive leaders are transparent about the things that they have dealt with in their lives, the challenges that they have faced, as well as their career goals and aspirations. Concerted effort. I will be upfront and blunt that this leadership style takes effort. In order for you to build a trusting relationship with your employees and get to know them in a personal sense so that you can cater your leadership style to match the individual, to allow you to get the most out of them, it is going to take effort to get to know them individually. You can't just know them as a group. You have to know how one person likes to be led versus how another person likes to be led. You have to understand the challenge that one person might face versus the challenges that another person might face. So those are just some of the characteristics, but I will tell you the most important characteristic is trust. A leader cannot be an intrusive leader unless that person has built up trust. The senior person is the one that is required to earn the trust of a junior person so that that junior person feels comfortable sharing anything that is going on with them personally. So without a doubt, the most important characteristic with intrusive leaders is trust.
Thank you for that. We know that truly trust matters. I love that. Thank you for that.
All right, Marcus, I am trying to understand intrusiveness. We were talking before, and that word it has a negative connotation, right? So the intrusiveness. So how did you share this or evangelize this in the military, where this is where you as a leader came up? How did people react to when you're like, I'm going to come in and talk to you about things that maybe you've never talked about with your leader before?
Right. So I will tell you that every presentation that I do, I start off by asking people that are hearing the term for the first time, what are their initial thoughts when I say the word intrusive leadership? And more times than not, it is a negative feeling that they have. Micromanaging, meddlesome, invasive, right? Then through the course of the presentation, when I actually define what intrusive leadership is, by the time I finish the definition and breaking it down, everyone that is thumbs down on the leadership style is giving me thumbs up, saying that they want to be led by an intrusive leader. Now, when you think of the word meddlesome, let me ask you this question. If you were going through something that you weren't necessarily wanting to share, but if your friend, or maybe your favorite cousin, maybe your brother or your sister, if they were a little bit meddlesome, you wouldn't take that as a negative thing. What you would do is you would know that they're asking you that question because they care about you. The reason why you react positively in those situations when someone is meddlesome is because your friend, your cousin, maybe your brother or your sister, they have earned your trust. So this isn't someone that is coming in as a stranger and then busting down your door, asking you what's going on and what are you cooking in the kitchen. This is someone that is consistently taking the effort to get to know you, to earn the right to knock on the door and be accepted into the home to find out what you're cooking for dinner. So yes, I chose the word intentionally because there are people today that are walking around carrying heavy burdens. And they spend 8 to 10 hours a day at the workplace, bottling up these emotions, acting like everything is okay when they're struggling with things inside. And what I want leaders to do is I want leaders to be okay diving into a space that might be a little bit uncomfortable. Be willing to have a difficult conversation. Be willing to build up trust where they can ask a woman at the job, how is your experience here at the workplace? If there's things that's going on in the world, like for me, as this journey started, I will be honest with you that I was struggling with the racial tension that was going on after I watched the video of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, the Christian Cooper situation in Central Park. I want to develop leaders that in that moment, they recognize that there are people that are walking around in the workplace that are simply not okay. And I want them to be able to dive into that space and simply ask, how are you doing? I know the conversations that are happening at my kitchen table might be different than the conversations that are happening with yours right now. And I want to just ask you how you're doing. And the point of that is to let people know that they can show up in their authentic self as a whole person. The only way that you do that is by you have to create a safe space where they feel comfortable doing that. You can't just tell someone, show up in your authentic self. You have to create an environment where they feel comfortable doing so. And so at times, in order for you to create that space, you are going to have to be a little bit meddlesome. You are going to have to be intrusive in letting people know that you care about them well beyond just the employee. You care about them as a father. You care about them as a wife. You care about them as a son that might be taking care of an ailing parent. You care about them holistically, and that anything that is going on in their life matters to you and the company that they're working for.
Thank you. I really think that that trust piece that you mentioned is reference to Dr. Sharon's question, that probably where it begins. You have to trust the person that he or she is not coming to you just out of being meddlesome. They really do care. Thank you for your answer.
Without a doubt, that trust is pivotal. If a stranger comes up and asks you, hey, how are things at home with your spouse? You're going to look at them like, wait a minute, like where is this conversation going? But once again, if your best friend asks you, hey, how are things at home? You're going to look at it totally different, right? So once again, this cannot happen unless there is trust between that senior person and that junior person. My message is that it is the senior person that has the responsibility to earn the trust of that junior person.
Thank you, Marcus. One of the things that you said is something I find myself saying often: earning the right. Right? And people need to earn the right to have those conversations. They need to earn the right for someone to be willing to trust them with those pieces of themselves, especially where there's space of vulnerability. My question for you is really around the challenges that exist for intrusive leadership. I believe in one section of your book, you comment about a few challenges that exist with intrusive leadership. If you could share a little bit more about that for us today.
Definitely. So one of the challenges is simply the fact that this leadership style, by the name intrusive leadership, is not well known. Right now, in my book is the only book on intrusive leadership. If you want to learn about emotional intelligence, well, there are a number of books on it. If you want to learn about servant leadership, there's a number of books on it. So if you go to someone and say, hey, I see myself as a servant leader, everyone kind of understands what you're saying. Right now, that is not the case with intrusive leadership. And I am trying to change that. Because if you tell someone, hey, I'm a leader that has high emotional intelligence, I'm a leader that's willing to have difficult conversations in the workplace, I'm a leader that truly takes intentional actions to earn your trust, I'm a leader that wants to create an emotionally safe environment for you. We can say all of those things, but what leadership style does all of that? And my message is it's intrusive leadership. So really one of the challenges is just being familiar with the term, right? Another challenge is just simply doing it, because there are a lot of people in older generations that grew up in the workplace at a time where your home life was your home life, and you don't bring that into the workplace. As was mentioned when this segment opened up, I'm a military veteran. There was a time not too long ago that in the military, you were told that if the Army, if the Coast Guard, if the Marines, if they wanted you to have a wife, they would have issued you one. If they wanted you to have a child, they would have issued you one. That was the culture and climate in these organizations not too long ago. And what that message was, what's in your personal life is in your personal life. Don't bring that into the workplace. That never should have been the case. Mm-hmm. So now to change that shift in where you're telling people things that are going on in your personal life is our business, and we want to help you with that. That goes against the current dynamic. But once again, to me, it's crazy that that was always the case, because we have always asked military professionals to sacrifice their whole self if the time came.
Mhm.
So we're going to ask someone in the military that not only are you going to sacrifice yourself as a serviceman, but the part of you that is a mother, we're going to ask you to sacrifice that too. We're going to ask you to sacrifice the part of you that's a husband. We're going to ask you to sacrifice 100% of yourself while telling you that we're only going to lead you in that 15% that's just the service member. That's crazy. If we expect you to sacrifice yourself 100%, or if we expect you to show up to the job as your authentic self, we need to be willing to lead 100% of you.
No, thank you so much for that. And when I was hearing you voice the characteristics, I'm thinking of this like manifesto of sorts, right? This idea of encompassing all of those, but then demonstrating them and being known for demonstrating them, which is where you will earn the right with the next group of people you lead, is by being known as an intrusive leader, being known and having that be part of your brand and the awareness from the people that are around you. Over time, I can see it really picking up steam, and so grateful for your work. Thank you.
No, thank you. And you hit it right on the head. Your brand. I was literally having this conversation last night about your leadership style is actually your brand and it follows you, right? And your sphere of influence by that brand increases with your level of seniority. So if you're just leading a small team, well, that team knows your brand, but that brand turns into your reputation. And so if you have that reputation and brand leading a small team, when you're the CEO leading in that same fashion, your brand and reputation now permeates throughout the whole organization. And now the organization is looked at as a organization that truly cares about the people. And you really just have to be intentional. It's just as simple as active listening. That's another characteristic that I didn't list, but it falls underneath this. Any manager can allow you to speak, to give you a moment to share your thoughts. But a leader makes sure that you felt heard. And that is a difference. There is a real difference between leadership and management. And I think one of the shifts, the paradigm shifts that I'm trying to change with leadership in all workplaces is making sure people understand we do need good managers. You have to know how to get the job done. You have to know how to complete the task. But we need managers and leaders. And there is a difference with it. And companies, organizations, agencies, they need to make sure that they're holding their managers responsible for leadership in addition to just being a good manager.
Absolutely. Perfectly said.
Okay, so one of the things that I want to discuss, we've talked a lot about leadership, but also under your sphere of influence is leadership development, which is a very passionate topic of mine. We know that leadership is action. We know it's not title, it's not position. So my question is, how do you work with that individual who does not have the title of leader, but has the characteristics of leader? How do you develop them and move them to step out and lead?
Well, really, you empower that individual. So if I'm in a supervisory role, and I'm looking at my employees, and there is just one person that, as you mentioned, maybe does not have the positional authority or title of a leader, but that is exactly what they're doing, then that's a person that I'm putting on my succession plan. That's a person that I'm making sure I'm connecting to mentors and having some conversations about where they feel that they want to go in their career. That's a person that we're going to actively put our arms around and invest in, right? Because it's about talent management. And trust me, if you have someone like that that is highly talented, not only are you looking at them every day, but some of those headhunters are doing the same thing. So if you don't take the time to actually invest in those people and develop them by giving them opportunities, giving them maybe special assignments, special projects where they can actually be in those leadership roles, they will find those opportunities elsewhere, right? So that is one way that you do that. Training in any of those things, when you recognize that someone has that talent, you invest in it. Now, what about the person that on your pecking order might be 4 or 5? Before you just discard them as someone that does not have the potential, what an intrusive leader does is also invest in that person. That's that concerted effort, because maybe that person is dealing with something outside that is preventing them from being that top person. Maybe that person needs to shift their work schedule so they can adjust some things at home so they can show up better in the office, right? So a lot of times that person that's number 4 or number 5, they might end up being your number 1 person with a little bit of investment as well. So not only am I going to invest as an intrusive leader in that number 1 person, but I'm also going to invest in every person. And if you really think about it, if everyone on the team was working for someone that they felt like was investing in them, isn't that the inclusive environment that we're trying to create in some of these workspaces?
Absolutely. And you spoke on the succession planning, which is a critical part of preparing the bench. And that's what my leadership development is about: preparing the bench, preparing the next in line, right? Because that's the longevity of any organization, is that succession planning. So I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
All right, Marcus. So you talked about the characteristics, you talked about how you're going to create more leaders. But what I really want to know is the initial reaction when you were talking to your team. I guess you call it unit in the military. So sorry. Like, what were their thoughts when you said, "Hi, I want to get to know you. I want to," whatever those questions were. What was their initial reaction? Because from what we understand about the military, this is a revolutionary approach to leadership.
Yeah. So I will tell you that I have never scheduled an intrusive leadership counseling session. I have never been talking to someone and say, "Hey, I'm about to get intrusive with you." I just asked the question. I will tell you that a lot of this is just who I am naturally. I try to get to know people. I want to get to know them in a personal sense. Now, one of the advantages that I had, especially in the military, is I was a pilot, right? A helicopter pilot. So routinely, I would be with 2 or 3 people as we were doing 2-hour, sometimes 4-hour, 6-hour flights, right? Sorties. That was a lot of time for me to ask them, "What did you do this past weekend? What are you doing this coming weekend?" And truly get to know them, right? So that was an advantage that I had. But I talked a little bit earlier about that sphere of influence. As you move up in the organization, you simply you cannot know everyone that you technically lead, right? So as a commanding officer of an air station, my role was to set the standard. So everyone that came into my office, they newly reported to the unit. I let them know what the expectation was from me and how they were going to be led. I let them know that their family matters and that if things aren't right at home, we want to know about it. because we can't expect them to be 100% at the job if they're not right at home. So I set the standard in telling every new person that showed up to the unit, this is how you should expect to be led. Then I held my mid-level managers responsible for doing it. So if one of my mid-level managers would come to me saying that they wanted to put someone on report because they weren't performing up to standard, we didn't adjust the standard. What we did was we adjusted the leadership. I would ask them, has anyone talked to this individual? Has anyone made sure everything is okay at home? What actually is the issue? Is it really an ability problem, or could it be something else? And eventually my mid-level managers knew that before they came to me wanting to sign some paperwork and holding someone accountable, they needed to communicate to me the things that they have done already to care for this individual, to make sure that there wasn't anything else going on. And once those things was done, then we held them accountable when that time, when it was necessary. So this is something that you don't just come right out and say like, hey, this is what we're going to do, and just all of a sudden just get in their business. But it is being intentional consistently over time to earn that trust, so that when you really need to dive in, you've already built it. As a senior person with mid-level managers, making sure that the mid-level managers are doing this. And then obviously at any point in time, my folks knew if you needed to walk into the CEO's office, my door was open. And they did that at times.
Thank you for sharing that, because that was another question I had about how do you grow this idea? And I was like, if you are going up in leadership and being a senior officer, you can't know everybody. So I appreciate your answer. Thank you for sharing it.
Okay, Marcus. So the next question that really comes to mind for me is, you're a really powerful speaker and you do speaking circuits. And when you are done, there's going to be a manager, a CEO, a business leader, someone who picks their head up and says, if I'm really honest, we have some work to do in our organization. When they have that awareness and they decide it's time for me to do something different, this has given me some ideas, but we've got a lot of work to do, where do you recommend they start?
So for me, I recommend you start by researching intrusive leadership. Become a student of what you're trying to become, right? Because that just gives you a foundation in how you want to move. Now, clearly this is going to sound like a great advertisement, but there is one textbook that you need to read on this leadership style. And here's the textbook, right? So I will tell anyone that if you make the decision that you want to be an intrusive leader, then become a student of intrusive leadership. Get the book, read it. Now, once you've read it, you think you know what it is, and you are ready to start actually engaging your employees, my advice is do so authentically. Be transparent. Simply go to them and say, hey, I was fortunate enough to go to a presentation with a guy that was amazing. I mean, his mustache was perfectly trimmed, and the words that he spoke out of his mouth was just amazing. But he talked about this leadership style called intrusive leadership, and I ended up reading a book on it. And it had me reflecting on my own leadership style. And I feel like that I might have missed out on some opportunities to be the best leader you needed. I might have missed out on some opportunities to provide you some care and support when you might have been dealing with something in your personal life. I recognize that I've actually closed myself off and not allowed you to get to know me. And so I think that I could be a better leader for you if I actually know you in a personal sense. So if you're okay with it, I would like to share with you a little bit more about me. And I hope that you will be willing to share a little bit more about yourself so that we can have a better working relationship and that I can show up as the best leader for you.
No, I really appreciate that, Marcus, especially the layer of vulnerability required to make those statements, right? It takes a certain type of committed individual to be willing to step up and say, this is new for me, but I like what I'm hearing and I want to try it because I think it's going to be good for all of us, right? And being willing to move through it with some level of transparency and to accept that not everyone's going to be on board right away, but there's an opportunity to build that trust through that level of vulnerability, through making a statement like that says, this is new to me, but I think it's a good idea and we should give it a shot. So thank you for that.
Without a doubt.
This has been an amazing session for us all. I can't wait to dive into your book and really explore this concept of intrusive leadership, which is very, very new to me. And so I'm excited to really learn more about it. We just want to say thank you. Thank you for being our guest. Thank you for being a part. And if you would, just take this opportunity to let our viewers and listeners know where they can connect with you, where can they purchase the book, and just where they can follow you and all of the updates that you have.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you and this team for what you're doing. You are making better leaders today for workers tomorrow with the efforts that you're taking. So I want to say thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for this opportunity. So if you are interested in this leadership style and you would like to buy the book, you can simply go to Amazon. And if you type in Intrusive Leadership, it is going to be the first book that pops up because it is the only book that is out there. If you want to connect with me, you can catch me on LinkedIn. If you go to the Canady Leadership Group on LinkedIn, and you can follow me. Also, you can search me, my name, Marcus Canady. I'm easy to find. I also have a website, CanadyLeadershipGroup.com. If you go to that website, it explains a little bit more about what my company does. It also talks about the book. And you can also purchase it through the publishing company through that website as well. And there's also a tab on there in the website that allows you to support our troops. One of the things that I have done is with the Coast Guard Academy Alumni Association, and I'm a proud member of the class of 2000 from the Coast Guard Academy, they have set up this Intrusive Leadership Fund. What this fund allows me to do, that when I am fortunate enough to talk to military audiences and go to military bases, I am able to provide them free copies of the book. My goal has never been to sell books to military members, people that want to just sharpen their leadership skills in our armed forces. So if you think that this is a viable leadership style and you want to support what I'm doing, as well as supporting our troops, if you go to my website, once again, CanadyLeadershipGroup.com, click on the Support Our Troops tab, and it will take you right to the Coast Guard Academy Alumni Association's donation page for the Intrusive Leadership Fund.
Awesome. I love the give back, and I think we all love that. I'm pretty sure we all love the give back. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I guess our visitors, our listeners and viewers, we want to thank you as well. And we know that certainly you've heard something that can help you today in your leadership journey. And so we just like to say thank you. And again, I am Dr. Sharon H. Porter.
I am Aisha B. Hoy.
And I am Dawn Bornheimer. As you navigate your leadership journey, remember that leading with purpose is not just a philosophy, but a commitment to making a positive impact.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your network. And don't forget to subscribe. You do not want to miss one episode or an opportunity to explore the intersection of leadership and purpose.
Continue to lead, continue to empower, inspire, and achieve.
And until next time, lead with passion, lead with positive intention, and by all means, continue to lead with purpose. Thank you. Thank you for joining the Leading with Purpose podcast. Please join us every Monday for a new episode.